Hi, everyone. If you'll calm down a bit. Hi, I'm Philip, one of the co-founders of Applifting, and I'll be your host for this evening. And I'm really happy about so many people being here in Karlín, and we have some people on the stream as well. So kudos for joining. And we'll be talking today about product. We'll be more specifically talking about how to thrive in the competitive world of today. And we have amazing lineup of five speakers, because we have 4 presentations with 5 speakers. And we'll start with Jáchym from Applifting, who'll be talking about how to juggle several projects all at once. Then we will move on to Míša, also from Applifting, who'll be talking about about how to apply your product knowledge in real life. We'll be talking about some life hacks, which could be quite exciting. Then we are joined by Aldair from Mews, who will be diving deep into actionable data and how to make data work for you and not just you work for the data. And then last but not least, we'll have also Jirka and Adam from Navigara, and they will be telling us how to use that data to guide developers. So that's not everything. We also have a quiz on the QR code right here, and if you are a bit competitive, you could fill it in, because we have amazing prizes from Applifting and Mews available in the other room when you entered the meetup space. So, without any further ado, Jáchym, stage is yours. Have a nice talk.
Can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you very much, Philip, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to see so many people here who came here and want to talk about product with us. Maybe let's start with a few questions. Can you please raise your hand if you consider yourself a product person? Anyone? 1, 2. Okay, we have about 10 people here. And can you please raise your hand again if you consider yourself, if you work as a product person at an agency? Right, yeah. We have quite a few as well, that's great. And my last question, so I know who am I talking to, can you please raise your hand if you are a software developer? Right, okay. I think that's a good mixture of people here. That's great, and I hope everybody will learn something useful for yourself from us today. So, about me, I am Jáchym, as you know already. I used to work as a product owner at an in-house. So I had my own product, actually several products. I was responsible for their strategy, for the backlog, the usual product stuff that product owners and managers usually do. However, after 4 years, I decided I wanted a change, so I went to Applifting, where I came in April, and I already worked on 8 products in those 8 months. So, this is quite my reaction after those 8 months. However, I think it's been really interesting and really challenging. And today I would like to tell you what it's like to come from a product company where you have your own product to an environment where you have to juggle multiple products, sometimes at once. So, first of all, I would like to take a look at this slide, which shows, as some of you may know, several product frameworks, several methodologies and stuff. Don't get me wrong, I like a good methodology, I do, because it gives us guidance, and it helps us navigate the process. However, when you work at an agency, sometimes you don't really have the luxury to actually go over the methodologies and processes, because we are quite limited by the time and budget that our clients are willing to put into our work. So we actually have to fit our work into some time that's given to us, 10 mandates it's not the usual case. We sometimes have much more, but as an example, this is what we have to deal with sometimes. So when something like this happens, you actually don't really have time to do everything that's here, but you have to kind of improvise and choose the best part of each process and methodology that suits you the best. So why do we even have product at an agency? Well, we are the voice of users in software development, to put it in a punchline like this. We are here because Applifting develops software, and sometimes the voice of users should be heard during that process. Of course, clients usually have their own product management and people. However, there is sometimes a lot of work to be done, and we are the generalists who have to come to the project and do whatever is necessary to actually get the product work done. And we come to the project, we do the work, and then we move on to the next one. And when I was thinking about today's talk and how to best summarize this experience, I just thought it would be best to tell you what it's been like for me when I joined Applifting 8 months ago. And I want to tell you a bit of a case study of the projects I worked on. And maybe after I'm done, you will have a better picture about what product people at agencies do. And let's get started. So, one important point I want to make here, all the projects are NDA projects. So, some of them are public, but I decided I don't want to mention their names. So I invented code names for the projects. And with the help of Midjourney, I created some images for them. But I want to illustrate the overall. Well, I want to say that these are like projects I worked on. This is not something that all product people work on, and every product person at Applifting have their unique experience. However, I think the types of projects and the work we do is quite similar across different projects and across different people. So I just wanna tell you, I just wanna show you also some templates or images and artifacts from different projects to get you a better idea. So let's get started with the first project, and I call it the Good Project. Actually, this was the first project I worked on when I joined Applifting. I only spent like 5 man-days on it, but it was important for me because this was the first thing I worked on, so you always remember something like that. And it was actually a pre-sale for a UK startup that in the health tech domain that were developing a mobile app that was meant to help some people who had disabilities to help them with something. And my job there was to prepare a proposal for the product work. So we had a discovery workshop, we had an estimation session, we gathered some requirements, and my job was to assess the product risks and design the mitigation strategy, how to mitigate those risks. So that's what I did during the proposal. And this is an example of something like we can do when we work on pre-sales. We try to empathize with the users and try to think about the risks that could be there and that should be mitigated by the product approach. So this is an example of an accessibility persona. This is a template. It's not a real persona, but this is something that we can create when we are, empathizing with the users. So that was the third thing. Second thing I worked on, I call the Green Project because it has something to do with clean tech. Clean tech is a term, actually I Googled, I don't know it's called like this, but it's companies that do business in the clean energy industry. And we are developing an internal application for them that has something to do with carbon accounting. It's actually the type of accounting that you do if you do something with carbon offsets. And my role here was proxy product ownership. That's something we also do here at Applifting. And that's when the actual product owner is at the client side and doesn't have enough capacity to attend all the Scrum meetings, attend all the Scrum ceremonies, just be there for the team. So we assume this role, and we are there. And our main job is to, we are the blue side, and our main job is to sync with the actual product owner at the client side and gather requirements. So that's what I've been doing for this EU startup. And a lot of it had something to do with business process modeling. This is not actually the thing that we usually do, but I have some background and knowledge in business process modeling, so I did that as well. But other than that, I mostly did what product owners usually do, meaning attending Scrum ceremonies, managing the backlog, just the regular stuff. The only difference is I'm not the actual product owner with business responsibilities. I'm the one that's only assigned to the project internally at Applifting. And that was project 2. And now let's go to number 3, which I call the tech project because it was very tech heavy. On this project, which was actually for a UK startup that was doing something in the data aggregation domain, they were thinking about turning their current on-prem solution to a SaaS, and they were trying to discover the needs of their users, how to target them, do some market segmentation. So here we were working in a pair with a colleague. We kicked the project off together. I was providing him with a second pair of eyes, and we were designing a user research strategy to actually talk to the potential customers of the client and trying to come up with an ideal customer profile during the customer journey mapping, as we called the user research, actually. So here, with this project, I want to show you an example of a proposal of a product timeline that we can offer to the client. And in this particular case, we started with forming the ideal customer profile, and then we did the stakeholder mapping, meaning user research, meaning talking to the actual customers, mapping their pains and gains. And then we actually refined the ICP to design a go-to-market strategy, come up with some customer journey touch points. We prepared some marketing and sales inputs, and we proposed a landing page structure. So this is an example of a project that we do. And also you can see that we sometimes can meet with our colleagues from the design team, that's the blue dot, and from the DX team, meaning developers experience. In products that are really tech heavy and involve some documentation, some interactions with the developers, we collaborate with our DX colleagues to make the best experience for the developers and users as possible. And once we were doing it, these are just like some standard things that product people know. We sometimes on project, we sometimes do value proposition canvases where we try to when we have the customer, we are trying to map their pains and gains, and we try to remedy the pains by our products and services. And I want to show you this one because the way we do customer journey mapping is actually quite simple. I know there are several product or service design frameworks that they can help you to do much more sophisticated customer journey mapping, but we are just trying to map the steps for the customer, getting from point A to B, and this is what we did on the particular project as well. Right, project number 4. I called the money project because it was in the fintech industry, and it was for a Czech startup that was developing mobile app in the fintech domain. It was a brand new product, so we were doing actually I call it a delivery design sprint. This is the first type of design sprint that I'm going to be talking about. My role here was to be the person responsible for product discovery and user testing at the design sprint, but there was another much more seasoned facilitator actually doing the design sprint, so I could focus only on the product discovery responsibilities. And similar to project 1, I was assessing product risk and trying to suggest their mitigation by the means of the right product strategy. So, the output of this was to suggest the next steps to kickstart the development, and that's why I actually call it a delivery design sprint, because development was starting, I think, like 3 weeks after the end of the design sprint. So we needed to find the fastest, good way, let's say, to prepare the backlog and start really developing and mitigate as many risks as possible. Which brings me to the topic of design sprint. That's what we do here as well. And our role as product people is twofold, I would say. We can either be there as I was here at this project, as the person that's responsible for product discovery, the product work, or we can be there as facilitators who are responsible for guiding the participants through the design process. Design sprint, that means a 5-day long workshop, basically. On day 1, you map for example, here you can see the customer journey through our service, and so you start with the definition of a problem, and on day 5 you have a prototype usually created in Figma where you test the prototype. And it's another job of product developers here. We are responsible for being the moderator of the testing, so we are talking to the user, giving them instructions, telling them what to do, and the team is gathering the feedback. Now to the project number 5, which I called the student project, because we were doing a product discovery among students for a Czech company in the edtech domain. In this project, similar to project 2 or 3, I think 3. I'm only doing the support role to my colleague who's responsible for the project, but we are doing together things like discovery workshop, and we are also doing the research together, because doing a product research, meaning interviews, is usually a two people job. So one person is leading the interviews, and the other one is basically taking notes and helping with the logistics. So yeah, this is the job we do here as well. And we sometimes do the workshops in person, actually. We don't only use Figmas, FigJams, or Miros. We actually have our own product box, which has a lot of supplies and tools. So yeah, on this project, we did a in-person, old-school workshop with a workshop box. One more thing I want to show you is Dovetail. That's the software we use to do analysis of user research. This is not the real video. This is their marketing screenshot. We upload a video, gather insights, and then we prepare the analysis for the clients where they can digest. And we of course, we interpret the results, so we deliver the interpretation of the research to the clients as well. Project number 6, I call the future project, and this one was an ideational design sprint. I call it like this because it was a different design sprint than the delivery one. Here, there was no development starting anytime soon, so we could really let our imagination loose, and we could really try to think about the best solution possible. So we were really ideating, really trying to get the best value to the users, and we could be brave when adding some features into the prototype. So, because we knew it wasn't going to be developed anytime soon. And for this one, we actually traveled abroad. It was also in the green, clean tech industry, and for this one, I was the facilitator. So actually, in Applifting, I had the chance to facilitate a design sprint abroad, which was a great experience for me. This one we use for design sprints. This is a populated FigJam board. I just wanted to show you, we have something for every activity, and this is a really good process that guides us through it. And also, we let the client in there, so we are really sharing everything during the design sprints with them. And this is an example of a zoomed out Figma prototype that was created at an actual design sprint. So only after 2 days, our designers are able to create something really, sophisticated. something. It was a mobile app, something with many screens and many different wires. So basically, this is what we are testing on day 5 when we are doing the design sprints. Project number 7, I called AI project. That's because we had a third type of a design sprint, which is called an AI design sprint. And in these types of design sprints, we actually include AI engineers into the design team. The usual design team consists of the facilitator, 2 designers, and the product developer. However, in these sprints, we also include an AI engineer. So we are adding the AI component to the UI, and so we can test not only the UI and UX, but we can also test the AI. And as an example of this, I want to show you outputs of one of our previous AI design sprints that we did here. And we actually created an app for this guy called Kuba. And this is actually running. You can download these from app stores. And there's an AI avatar of this guy who teaches you English. And this one, we created the first prototype at an AI design sprint, like I was talking about. And the last project I have here is the one I'm actually about to be joining quite soon. I call it the Impactful Project. And that's a project that has a huge impact on people's lives. And we do an educational platform for children where I'll be joining the team as a product analyst and maybe some facilitator, because there's a lot of requirement gathering, a lot of work at, let's say, user research or testing. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do when facilitating workshops or design sprint. So with this one, I also want to illustrate that we don't only jump back and forth between short-term projects and design sprint, but we can also be assigned to a long-term project where we are attached to a single team and we do some continuous work, basically like developers who are also typically assigned to a project for a longer periods of time. Right. Yeah, and Jira is our friend. I'll be working a lot with her on this project. And to wrap it up, I talk about 8 projects, and I wanted to illustrate that as a product developer at an agency, you can, within just 8 months, you can get in touch with a host of different projects in many different domains. We have some green projects, some health tech, fintech, ed tech, a lot of stuff. Also for clients in different countries, be it in the EU or in the UK or in the Czech Republic. Some of them are B2B, some of them are B2C, some of them are internal. So the job we do here is quite interesting. I think it's really challenging sometimes, but I just want to say that product is a very good place at software agencies, and I think I showed you we do a lot of meaningful work here. By the way, we are hiring, so if you would like to join us, you can go to our website and just apply. Thank you.
Thanks, Jáchym, for the wonderful presentation. And I can definitely agree that in an agency, as many of you know, with every new project, but you learn something. Well, I definitely do. So are there any questions in the room for Jáchym? Anyone? Right.
Thank you. Hi, Jáchym. Thank you for the nice presentation. And I noticed that you work with a lot of startups and you have like 8 years of experience. So I'm just curious, after working with the product owners, getting the customer needs, how many of these startups are still in the market? Have you done this exercise to go back?
I think that's probably a question for Philip, because I've only been here for 8 months, so I wouldn't know. There would be quite a short runway, I would say.
Yes, it's a great question. The answer is that for the first 2 years Applifting worked, which was like 2014 to 16, not many. But that's why we decided to get started with the product team and to start with the product experience at Applifting, because We wanted to basically tell no to projects which are not viable, and that's also the reason why we are doing the design sprint at start of most projects, because we want to be sure that we are not making something which will end up in the trash bin. So, yeah. More questions, anyone? For Jáchym? Anyone? No? In that case, shall we have a pause, or maybe after the second presentation? Okay, in that case, Misha here from Applifting is not having a presentation per se, but instead she will talk about how she uses product workflows in her real life. So enjoy.
Oh, sorry. Okay, maybe you should adjust the sound a little bit. Is it better now? Can everyone hear me over there? Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who came today. I'm actually really surprised how many developers are here. And I'm quite pleased because I usually talk to product people. And I feel that the bridge between product and other technologies or specialties is often very difficult to bridge. So I'm very happy and thank you for being here. To start, as Jáchym was kind of mentioning, there are a lot of methodologies, frameworks, product kind of theories, and I would be interested in how many of you actually ever heard of this book, if you give me a second. The book or the framework of jobs to be done. Can you raise your hands? Okay, awesome. How many of you actually read it? Yeah, a fewer hands, okay, understandable. So I will take about 2 minutes to actually sum it up. What is this framework about and why I'm talking about it today, and how I actually apply some of the principles in my normal personal life, not as product person, nor as product tech lead, nor as any other of the hats I am very often wearing at the same time. So jobs to be done is this framework which shifts the focus. It doesn't look at the features or what actually business people want users to do, but focuses on the needs of the user. Very simple example, you need to drill a hole into the wall. So you don't need a drill. You need the hole, but you're employing the drill to make the hole. And this kind of shift in the mindset of actually looking at the job to be done, not the tool which is doing it or the employee or whomever, was kind of a revolutionary point of view for the product work. The shift in the focus is to look at the user's motivations, struggles, or goals. So for example, for me, I never buy dresses without pockets. Very simply, because my dress needs to be functional, and my job for the dress is to be actually comfortable and have pockets, because I need to put stuff like this mic thingy somewhere when I'm talking. If I have dress without pockets, well, then I'm in trouble, and also my colleagues are not very happy. So this is this kind of idea world where jobs to be done theory is bringing us. By asking about the user's motivations or the actual struggle or the thing he or she needs to solve, we are actually going to solve real problems. And we are shifting from just adding feature after feature, but actually twisting the product in a way that somebody actually uses it and enjoys it and then recommends it, and then you know the drill, how it goes. Any questions about this jobs to be done, or are we on a good page? Was I clear? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Awesome, thank you. So we can take this away. We will not need it anymore. because the way how I use this framework of jobs to be done in my everyday life is a little bit shifted. As I said with the dress, I mean, I'm a product person, so of course my brain is kind of product-oriented. So a lot of things I do in my life are kind of with these glasses of product. But today I wanted to talk to you about a different, kind of situation. We have this colleague in Applifting who is very famous by his backpack. So we have this colleague, and we have this backpack. I'm sorry, I don't really know how to draw, so this is a very kind of, whatever bag. Or a pig, whomever, I don't care. This backpack and this colleague, they're very important because he leaves it kind of somewhere in the office. And by that, everyone in Applifting knows that this colleague is, first of all, in the house, and second of all, everyone has this collective duty to kind of remember where they saw the bag last time. So when he starts to look for it, somebody always kind of can point, oh, I saw it over there 2 hours ago. And it kind of helps to pinpoint. Of course, he has an AirTag, but very often he forgets to charge it, so it doesn't really do the job correctly, if you know what I mean. So this colleague, who is very dear to me, a couple of months I realized that his famous backpack wasn't not there anymore, and he started to use a different one, a very old kind of different model. So I asked, listen, what happened? And he said, after 10 years of using it, it broke. And now I am kind of struggling because I was emotionally attached to this bag, and I'm very sad that it's not in here anymore. By coincidence, 15 years ago, my parents bought me the same bag, which was still at my parents' place. And I don't use it anymore. So I was like, okay, listen, okay, no big deal. I will just bring it, so you can have it. So I had the job to bring the bag. So first kind of task which happened was to retrieve it from my parents' place, which was a task in its own, because I a couple of times forgot, and then I couldn't find it, and I will spare you the details, but eventually I managed to locate the bag. And then I was like, okay, 15 years old bag, probably needs washing. So I kind of mentally did this note like, okay, I need to wash it. So, okay, now I can't write anymore, sorry people. But before I could wash it, I realized that there are more jobs to be done before that. First of all, I found all medicine in it. I found all batteries. I found old papers, old plastic stuff, kind of garbage. I assume everyone has this kind of bag at home which kind of just collects stuff, and every now and then you just have to throw it away. So that was this bag. And since I wasn't using actively this bag for, 6 years maybe, I found also some emotional stuff. Some old pictures with my exes, some old postcards. Going through that was kind of a job on its own, but in a different way. Where I want to go at is that all of a sudden, a simple act of kindness for my colleague to actually bring him a bag became a kind of metrics of other jobs all of a sudden to be done. You can tell me that, those are all garbage, you can just throw them away. Unfortunately, no. Because I want to live in the world where old pills go to pharmacy, where old batteries go to the battery, whatever, garbage bin, where paper goes to paper bin, where plastic goes to plastic bin, and when emotional stuff gets processed. So I actually take time and think about it and put it in my diary or whatever. And it's still still wasn't washed, and he still didn't get it. So it took, literally, it took me half a year to do all of this, because of course I kind of understood that, oh yeah, this is all taking very long, and da. So fortunately, 2-3 weeks ago, we finally managed that I washed this thing and brought it back to him. You might be asking yourself why I did such a big kind of journey for one stupid bag. Well, first of all, because I like this colleague. Second of all, it's because I want to live in those worlds where we actually treat those things as they should be. And here I'm coming to kind of more philosophical kind of angle of my talk, why I'm actually telling you all of this. We have those product frameworks we use in our everyday life. We product people, you developer people, you probably have your own stuff you are actually using, so I'm not going into that arena. And recently I realized that I started automatically using those for things like my dresses or bags for my friends or the way how I do my coffee. Because, there are some things I need the job to be done in some sort of way, and not always the services which are available are giving me that, or are maybe too difficult or struggling. Couple of years ago, I read this quote from someone. I don't even know who that was. But this person was saying, every time you open your wallet, you are choosing the world you are living in. In other words, if you go to a shop and you see one cucumber which has this plastic wrap on it, and the second one without it, and you choose the one with the plastic, you are kind of sending a micro signal that this is okay, we want those cucumbers. If you do this all thing with a bag, I would believe I am sending the micro signal to the world that I want relationships which are based on love and shared items, but also on all of the other stuff where the garbage goes to its right place. Lastly, I believe that if you're a product person or not, you have this power. However, if you're a product person, I think your power is a little bit bigger. If you start to think about your users and their jobs they're trying to get done instead of features, you have actually tremendous power to send those micro signals to the universe about how the universe should be looking like. And guess what? All the big kind of products which are disrupting the world last couple of years, things Netflix or Airbnb or Uber, somewhere at the beginning, there was someone who thought let's disrupt the way how we do things. Let's do the job differently, and then started to build the whole kind of framework around it, and then changed our lives and the way how we look at things. Thank you.
Amazing. I can definitely see some parallels between this and projects I have been part of, because one thing leads to several usually, and the growth is usually exponential. So thanks for the talk. Are there any questions in the room?
Yeah.
Anyone? Right.
Hi, I'm Ruben, also a
Hi,
product guy.
Roman.
I thought the story was going to go in a totally different direction. I thought, I don't want this bag because it's not my bag. Anyway, my question is more about when you work with jobs to be done, right? We're always trying to fix problems that customers are encountering. But have you encountered a situation where you're trying to solve a problem with the jobs to be done, but the customer doesn't know that they have the problem?
Oh, yes. Every day.
Please.
And you kind of listen to Jáchym's talk, right? So actually, Jáchym is in my team, so the struggle is real. My projects would look similarly. And the important part is the 10 man days meme at the very beginning. So if I say use jobs to be done framework in our work, it's kind of indicative in the sense that we rarely have time to go actually through the whole cycle of actually identifying what is actually the job to be done. Of course, the way how we do the work and with the experience we are having, we can very quickly identify it. And to your question, yes, it happens very often that either the client comes with a very set in stone idea of what the user wants or needs, and then the users, they tell us something totally different, but we understand that they don't know themselves. And there comes the creativity in our work, because we have to find some kind of common ground by taking bits and pieces of the different theories and kind of navigating both with the client and with the user or consumer to kind of understand where the problem is. I would like to give you a more concrete example, but I would need to think about a good one for a moment. So maybe over the break we can exchange if you want.
For sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, more questions? Anyone?
Oh, there's one.
Oh, right.
And what did your friend say about the bag?
He was super excited. I mean, he had this really childish sparkle in his eye. He hugged me, and now he is, I don't even know, he's probably wearing it now. I don't know, yeah.
And do you miss the bag?
No. I don't miss it for the last 10 years or so no. But I'm very happy that he is now having my bag.
Any other questions? Anyone? Not even here?
Over there.
Right. Ah, sorry.
Thank you. With your example here with the batteries, paper, and emotional baggage and everything else, I kind of got the impression that all these things you wanted to do before you give the backpack to your colleague have equal weight.
Uh-huh.
Is this really the case, and
No.
how do you prioritize the weight of job to be done when you design?
I love this question. Thank you for it. Yes, they don't have the same weight. And yes, there was a prioritization. So in reality, what happened was that I just took this bag and kind of shook everything on my floor and shoved it into washing machine, because that was the priority. And then I kind of went through my lovely art piece on the floor and started to kind of distribute the things. Since I believe that those things go to concrete places. In my home, I have plastic garbage bin, paper garbage bin, place for batteries, place for old pills, which I just like put it over there. It means the job is there, but it's this kind of like pending job. Of course, plastic I would be throwing, 2-3 times a week. Paper maybe once, twice a week. Batteries maybe twice a year. Pills probably once a year, or when I remember. So that's the kind of prioritization. In this case, it's kind of simple. When we come to what Philip was saying, that he can see the parallels, sometimes it's much more difficult to kind of see when is the right time to do things. The biggest problem was the emotional baggage, because I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't plan for that. Fortunately, I do have also a place and a way how to deal with it. So I just went quickly through, and at the moment of actually having all of the stuff on my floor, I knew that there wasn't the time and place to do it. So I actually took, do you guys know Rekrabička? The kind of Tupperware you can get food from, for example, here from Jídlovice. Well, I have a lot of them at home, and I use them kind of creatively sometimes. So I actually put the emotional stuff in this and put a post-it note saying, this is emotional stuff, plan for it. And put it also to my to-do list for the moments when I'm doing this 101 kind of self-care dates where I go through this stuff. So I dealt with it like 3-4 days later.
Right, any more questions? Doesn't seem like it. So thank you for this wonderful talk.
Thank you.
finally learned where all the krabičky from the office are. And
No, no.
let's have a 15-minute break, take something to eat, enjoy yourselves, and let's meet here in those 15 minutes and listen to the rest of the wonderful presentations we have scheduled for today. everyone, if I may have your attention, the 15 minutes is up, so I'll ask you to either sit down or just calm down, because we have our next speaker here, and our next speaker is Aldair Borges, product developer from Mews. And we have organized this meetup today together with Mews, so I'm really happy that we can have Aldair here. And he will talk not just about data, but also how to interpret it. So Aldair, take it away.
All right. For the slides. There. Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Aldair. I'm a product manager at a company called Mews. So if you don't know what Mews is, we build software for the hospitality industry. We've essentially spent the last 10 years dragging hoteliers, kicking and screaming from on-premise systems to the cloud. Essentially looking at reinventing one of the oldest industries that we have, because, I mean, how many of us have stayed in a hotel before? How many of us have had a really memorable experience in a hotel? And how many of us have had a terrible experience? Right, and so much of that is due to the restrictions that hoteliers had. They were literally living in a world where they were working on DOS systems. In fact, to this day, if you walk into a Hilton, you are being checked in on a DOS system. It is terrifying, and nothing creates a worse experience than that poor person at the front desk going from their iPhone to a DOS and you checking in. And that's essentially what our goal is. And we have recently become a unicorn, and it's been a rapidly growing company. I've been here for about 7 years now. When I started, there was just 30 people at Mews. Now there's over 1,000. So we've learned a thing or two about how to interpret data, how to move quickly, and how to make smart decisions really fast. So I'm going to cover 3 main things today. The first one is some of the common mistakes that people make when interpreting data. So some of the lessons that we've learned at Mews, and hopefully impart on you, so you never have to experience that either. Then we'll look into how you can remove some of the subjectivity in data when you're actually trying to review it and you want to have something actionable, which will be the last part we'll look at, is bundling everything together and looking how we can actually take data and information and take action on it. So we'll start off with a couple of common mistakes. So I wanted to start with a scenario, since most of us have stayed in a hotel. You can already start to picture that a hotel has high volumes of check-ins. There's these gigantic lines. You've gotten off a long flight. It's been 8 hours, and now you have to wait in the queue. So as a guest, you are obviously going to end up complaining, right? That is not a nice experience to get off a flight, and if you have kids and you've been on an 8-hour flight, that's pretty tough. So the hotel's got a huge amount of complaints. They have long guests at the check-in. What do they do? So let's think about what the best solution is. So we have 3 options here. We've got looking at it from the perspective of a receptionist, a hotel supervisor, and a hotel manager. So the receptionist is saying, okay, how do we solve this problem? There's long queues, the guests are complaining. I am so stressed as a receptionist. I have these 2 points, long queues, complaints, give me more people to work with. Then I can have more people checked in. Makes sense, right? Then there's the supervisor. They're thinking a little more strategically. They have exactly the same data points, the same information, long queues and guest complaints. Okay, what if we could get one of those really cool kiosks, kind of like you get in fast food places like a Burger King or KFC, and we can get a couple of people to check in on the kiosk, and there's always going to be a couple of people by the desk. That way we don't have to hire as many people. That seems pretty solid, right? Then you have the general manager, again, looking at exactly the same data, but from their perspective, they're seeing things, again, on a higher level in the bigger picture. They're looking at those 2 points and thinking, okay, I have all these people checking in. They're probably arriving at different times, and the line's building up over time. What I want to do as a general manager is figure out how I can get or incentivize people to check in at different periods of time, and then I can actually increase the revenue. So I still have the same amount of people coming in, but instead of guests complaining, they're happier, and I can make more money from it. So which one of them is right? What's the best solution? Any hands up for the first one? No? Second solution? No? Third solution? Most hands? Well, technically all of them, because we actually haven't set any targets. So they can all be right, depending on the lens that you look at. So some of the common mistakes that we make when we are looking at data, and this is a very practical real-world example, is that data has a lot of bias. We looked at 3 different roles that were looking at exactly the same information. And they came up with completely different solutions. I also gave you an example that was completely solution first, right? Like I just told you, this is what we're going to do about it. So you're already using the data to justify the answer, right? So it's human nature to just take the information you've got from a single perspective and justify that answer. And they also want clear outcomes. We just said we wanted guests to not complain and check in earlier. Okay, so what? What are you actually trying to achieve? What is the goal? And we were ignoring context. We looked again from the lens of 3 different people. They were experiencing the same thing, but with completely different context, they saw a completely different answer. Now, the first point I'd like to raise is the nature of data, right? It's super subjective, right? It doesn't speak for itself. It is our job to be able to interpret the information that comes to us, to be able to deliver value from it. And that is a really crucial part of being a product manager, is taking the information that you have and turning it into valuable insights that you can actually action and make business decisions from. So we needed context, right? So what happens when you throw a bit more context in there? So hotel is looking for ways to increase the average revenue for guests. So, okay, it's a business, they're trying to make more money. Let's look at it from the perspective of those 3 people again. So, again, what is the best solution? If you look at it from the lens of the receptionist, right, on a really practical business standpoint, you look at adding more staff. Okay, the cost of acquiring those staff, similar to any other business decision, right? The cost of the time you spent versus the return, that's pretty high. You've got to interview all those people. You still got those long queues going through. And then when you actually get them in, you've got to think about the lifetime value. How often, on average, do people actually stay at a hotel? It's pretty high turnover business. You're either a university student working at a reception desk. The same person is probably not going to be there at the end of the season. So is it worth actually hiring someone? It's a pretty high cost as well, between the value that you're getting in the long term versus the actual value in the short term. And the returns aren't always clear, because hiring is, as you all know, quite a big risk. You bring someone in, you take all that time, and you hope they're going to be a culture fit. You hope they understand what they're going to be doing. It's hard to predict if somebody's going to be an absolute rock star and be productive, and they can check in 30 people at once. And they could be a little nervous and not that good at their job. In fact, it could be counterproductive. Your other receptionist ends up helping the person who can't do their job. So we know that a receptionist isn't the best way to go about it, because we have context on the business problem. So we can already say, okay, that receptionist, probably not the problem we're trying to solve. Let's look at the other 2 examples. So if we zoom in onto the supervisor, we look at our business metrics again. So we're looking at the kiosk. Okay, what's the cost of actually acquiring a kiosk? If you imagine it's, something like a general tablet solution, right? Probably not that expensive. You could get one for about 200 euros and put it on a desk. So cost of acquisition, fairly low. Lifetime value, they'll generally last quite a while. Hopefully nobody throws it on the floor and breaks it. But you've got a decent bit of value coming in there. You solve your problem of faster check-ins. You can actually do things like upselling, so you can increase revenue. How many of us have ordered one of those, kiosks at McDonald's, and they always ask you to add that extra thing, right? Well, got a hand up there. It works, right? So there's a clear, easy example of I don't have to hire more people. I'm making a good business decision. But what about if we look at it from the lens of the general manager? And now keep thinking of the general manager as, I guess, a product manager in this case. They have a high level of context across multiple teams. They're looking at keeping that cost of acquisition as low as possible. So how do we efficiently find an answer for our customers that drives the most amount of value? And that answer at that point was, let's incentivize people to check in at different times. How many of you have arrived at a hotel really early because you took an early flight? Quite a few people. Isn't it terrible to have to wander around the city and like drag around a suitcase? So, okay, he might be onto something. People are willing to check in earlier. That's actually quite convenient for them. And in a lot of places, people are willing to pay the extra money so they don't have to carry their bag around for the entire day. They just want to enjoy their holiday and go on an adventure. So, makes sense. In terms of the lifetime value, that pretty much works the entire time that the hotel is open, right? So as long as the hotel exists, you can get people, incentivize people to check in at different times. Pretty easy. Your guests are happier because you go from having to carry your suitcase around all day, then wait in line at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's checking in and being just really, really annoyed. You're willing to pay for it, so the hotel's making more money. Your guests are happy. Suddenly you've got a thriving business, and those couple of insights and the context that you got helped you make better decisions. So when we look at what the best solution is here, it's effectively those two options. But we're still making a couple of mistakes when we're looking at this information. We need to actually set clear targets, right? So we've got the kiosk option, we're going to be making more revenue, and we've got the general manager's option. We're still making more money, we still solve the problem for the hotel. So we've gone far enough, or have we? Right? But we don't have a structured outcome. What are we actually trying to drive? What is the numerical value of the information that we're looking at? Rather than looking at the data and throw value onto it, focusing on the outcome is something that we often get told to as product managers, but it's incredibly hard, and people often forget it. It's easy to focus on solutions. There's also an issue of not setting measurable metrics, right? So we've just said we're going to increase revenue. But what does that mean? If you increase it by 1%, is that actually valuable? So if we look at actually creating clear targets, what does that look like? Right? So when we start looking at information, we should start structuring it in a way that says, okay, a hotel is looking to increase the average revenue by 40% in 2024, so from 800K to about 1.1 million. Okay. Now you can start looking between those two options and see which one drives the most value. It might be the fact that the general manager's idea actually doesn't drive the value that you need. And that's when the culture of experimentation comes in. Often when we look into data, we think it's definitive, that the numbers are black and white. If that's it, then let's just go for it. There might be a small margin of error. But it's often overlooked that we can run a quick and easy experiment to understand what's actually happening. So some of the common mistakes that happen when we actually start to look at the numbers and look at information is something called data snooping. Who's ever heard of data snooping? Weird term. Not a lot of people. Data snooping is basically what happens when you stare at a whole bunch of data or a whole bunch of information for a long time, and then you try find some form of statistical significance so you can make a decision. You know that, okay, the metrics have moved, so I'm just going to tell this story about the metrics moving because I don't know why they moved. I can't give you the context. That's pretty much data snooping. And then, of course, there's the common aspect that we all fall into, which is cherry picking. You find the best and the shiniest numbers, the most revenue made, the most time saved, the best application. It's not about finding the shiniest numbers, it's about finding the most valuable one. And that's why focusing on the outcome is so essential for that. And a lot of times, a mistake we make when we're looking at the actual outcomes and focusing on data is we come in without enough context, and we don't know whether we're looking at a leading or a lagging metric. Am I going to be measuring the amount of time it takes to check in for a long time? What does that look like? Is the investment of that kiosk going to yield value over X amount of time? So the times in which we said data is so important. You can't just say, I'm chasing 1.1 million. Okay, sure. When? Are you going to make it in a week, in 2 weeks, in 5 minutes? When are you going to look at this metric, and how are you going to be able to break it up? And that's where models like OKRs come into to a lot of help, because they allow you to break down information and set reasonable targets over a time interval. So then we look at reducing subjectivity, because I don't think you can absolutely remove it. None of us are perfect. We all have our own biases. We all have our different opinions and different levels of context. So what is kind of the key to reducing this subjectivity? The first one is observation and getting that contextual understanding. If I just gave you a bunch of random information and a really terribly written SQL query, I'm sure it's going to do something, but like, what will it do? What is the context that you're trying to look at? Then we look at what is the role of data. So we really need to get down to the fundamentals of what the role of data is. And the reason for this will come into more context in a moment. But essentially, we're looking at data should allow us to reduce bias. It is not the be-all and end-all. We should not be trying to add data for the sake of it. Very often, we get the case where your VP or your CPO wants to know why something was successful, and you just need to grab numbers and put it there, or you get it told what metrics have moved, and you have to just find some sort of metric to put there. That is completely the wrong way to go about it. The purpose of data is clarity. It is not just a tool to throw at things to prove your work has value. You should have a clear outcome set, and the data helps you tell your story of how you drive that value. So in essence, its purpose is to bring clarity. Right? So you're looking at creating a unified goal when you set an outcome, and the data is how you're about to get there. So if I look at a couple of key points with how we reduce subjectivity, begin with the end in mind. I keep talking about outcomes. I keep focusing on that. Clear and measurable outcomes are essential for making this happen. Understand the purpose of the business and the business cases that you're actually trying to solve. Then, the one part that we often forget when we're looking at data is the value of qualitative data. So often it's nice to throw a great number about something. If we look at an example about check-in, and for people like us who build software for hotels, we can look at a hotel increases its check-in by 1,000 people, right? That might just be a fluctuation. Unless you were sitting behind the reception desk or talking to those people, you completely lose the context of why things are happening. So remember to always balance those. And then lastly, the 5 whys. So this is something we absolutely love using at Mews, is just asking yourself why you're looking at something enough times until you absolutely have no more reasons left. It brings an incredible amount of clarity in terms of understanding the true problem that you're solving. It also removes any of the peripheral nice-to-have information, but helps you get down to the core. It helps you create clear, understandable outcomes and prepares you when you're having conversation, for example, with your leadership teams, of why you're looking at something and the context that your data is able to provide for you. Okay, onto the fun part. How do we actually interpret all this data? How do we use this information, and why was all of that so important? So if we start applying those fundamentals for success, we started seeing a trend a couple of years ago, and there was more and more low-code or no-code tools available, and we use some pretty great ones as well at Mews. We've gone through multiple iterations. We were a tiny startup before. We didn't have massive tools. We went from Google Analytics to having to teach all the product managers SQL so they could pull the data that they needed, to these great no-code tools that could help us get the context in terms of numerical and qualitative data, and understanding how user interaction actually works. So I mentioned, like with those hotels, it's not very practical, for example, for us to go and stand behind a reception desk. It's a bit weird. And if whether you're building the software for hotels or for McDonald's or anything else, or if it's an app on someone's phone, it's still weird if you're looking behind their screen. But there is tools that we have now that give us access to this sort of information. And I really recommend tools like Gainsight, like Heap, that have a good balance of being able to pull the qualitative and quantitative together, they're really good at helping us tell a story, right? These are fairly simple no-code or low-code tools that can help you pull that information together and help you focus on those outcomes. But this, I would say, was what I would have really, really pushed and encouraged about a year ago. And the reason that I've mentioned all those biases and the general way we see data is because the way we are starting to interpret data has changed. The tools we have completely changed. If you had asked me a year and a half ago, perhaps, and you said, okay, what is probably the future of like those really cool product tools? I would say people, I guess, are combining qualitative and quantitative tools, kind of like Gainsight. So you can do surveys, you can do reporting in it, and they'll probably get simpler, they'll probably get more efficient. You can probably do things like screen capture, right? So we had a lot of micro tools, and you're pulling them into one. But if you have tools like Databricks, with some of your redacted information over there, we now have access to AI that is able to generate data for us as product managers. So the role between product and data is really starting to change and shift. It's much easier now to be able to gather and pull information from a database and not just focus on user interaction data. So as a product manager, you could actually run a query without running a complex SQL query and multiple table joins, but just typing out sentences. It hasn't gone that far yet, but that's why that understanding of what data is and its subjectivity is so important, because the AI is only going to tell you what you ask it for. So if you ask it for information that's just going to make you happy, that's what you're going to get. And the reality is, we're stepping into a world where these tools are exactly where we're getting in terms of understanding and interpreting data. So understanding those fundamentals and those knowledge and asking those 5 whys are not only important when you're using these tools, but when you are actually getting the information from these tools. If somebody gives you a random report that they've generated, you need to be able to ask the right questions, to doubt what they have. Ask those 5 whys. Ask them why they looked at that specific set of information. Because it's going to be way too easy to type in, show me the best amount of check-ins for a hotel in X region. Show me the most amount of users for a specific country. It's going to give you what you need, and it's going to create a beautiful chart. This is an example of a tool where you can run quick question. I have an example of I ran, I guess, last week of a quick query, and all you need to do is convert to a visual image, and you've got a nice presentation, you've got a nice chart. But if you're not able to doubt and ask the right questions, you end up taking your business in the wrong direction. And that's why really focusing on the interpretation of data is so important for us as product managers going forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aldair. Great talk. Any questions? Anyone? No one? I didn't see any questions on the stream. Right here.
So, as far as product analytics, checking, usage, monthly active user, weekly active users, how far are you guys going into this funnel, basically? Oh, sorry.
So pulling that information out gotten substantially easier. So we started with Google Analytics. Took a bit of clicks, but really easy to get to. Now we deployed Heap first, but then we moved over to Gainsight because it has a better balance of qualitative and quantitative. But as soon as you onboard Gainsight as a tool, it has auto capture. So it starts tracking all the activities on a web page throughout the entire existence as soon as the integration is created. You literally click on the dashboard, and it tells you all your active users, weekly active users, your retention, and pulls out all those general metrics. So that sort of data analysis has become so easy. What we were previously relying on for a data analyst was for like the deeper analysis. So that sort of stuff, if you can get it out the box, that no longer has that much value to us. So the question isn't anymore how many daily active users you have, it's why. And that's part of how like using these sort of tools now is going to be a massive help to us for the future.
Thanks. Any more questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the nice presentation. You spoke a lot about biases, and it made me wonder, because in hospitality we're also talking about different cultures, how do you factor the culture into the biases?
That's a difficult question to ask on a global stage. When you look into the biases of any culture, the truth is, again, as humans, we all have those biases. So the best way to understand how those biases arise is to question yourself. Right? Nobody stands on the stage and says, "Oh, here are all the biases I have." Sometimes some of those are deeply embedded. So whether you're looking at, for example, expansion into the North American market, okay, what are the group of Americans like, right? At the top of your head, most of the time we're already forming a picture of, okay, what does an American look or act like? But start breaking down those whys, and you start realize, I can see Matthew's laughing, breaking down those whys for those specific segments that you're looking at, when you feel yourself jumping to conclusions, is the best way to tackle those biases.
Thank you for that. Maybe just to challenge my own bias, I would imagine that maybe in more like a Middle East, people would like to have this custom treatment and not go to the kiosk. So what is your observation based on your data? Does people in the Middle East use your kiosk, or they prefer to talk to a real human being?
So we haven't expanded to the Middle East yet. We're active in the Asia Pacific, Europe, North and South America, and Africa. But in general, for even those regions, what you find is that hospitality is kind of a chain of different segments, right? There's people who are business travelers, they want to get in, they want to get out, they stay in a hotel and they've got meetings. Then there are people who are like leisure travelers and they want to have an experience. And like technology can help with that experience still. So we have a hotel in France, the Palace of Versailles, like ridiculous. It's got 40 rooms, but the average room price is like 5,000 euros, right? You know, like when people go there, they expect 5,000 euros worth of treatment. But at the same time, by deploying things like intelligence in notes, we're able to take all the notes from all the stays that guests has had, give that receptionist a summary, and let them know that this person likes this little food, this is the name of the last person they traveled with, this is how they like their bed made. This place is insane. There's people who literally ask only to be served with white gloves. Right? It's a lot. So there's different ways that you can go about approaching it. And again, it's about being smart about knowing the segment that you're targeting for and the problems they are trying to solve.
Thank you.
Maybe I also reply to that because among young people and hostels, the kiosk is very popular because young people just don't want to spend time on the reception. They just want to do everything on the phone or on a device. So I think rather than maybe geographical, it's more like a different type of demographics you look at. But I couldn't really answer that. But although I'm from Mews, but I want to ask you something. Do the hotels actually ask us for the data, or we are kind of actively going to them and telling them this is what you could fix if you do it right?
Very good question, Jan. So
this was not staged.
So what we've tried to do is, because we realized that hoteliers have been stuck with all this old technology and their expectations honestly weren't that high in terms of how can we improve our business. So they're coming to us and saying, well, what do we do? So the way we try to look at it is that we're not only a software developer, we're also a technological partner for the hotels. So we actually have our customer success managers that take the data that we're looking at for each of those properties. They help the hoteliers analyze the information, and they're able to give them recommendations on how to improve their business.
Hi, I'm Ruben again. I have a dilemma. So who is your customer? Okay, let me rephrase. Who's your primary customer?
That is a very loaded question. So we're in the hospitality vertical. Our focus is hotels, hostels, and apartments. I would say we're generally growing up market, so what we'd consider to be like more SMB and heading towards mid-market sort of clients and getting towards sort of the luxury segment.
Okay, so simple answer is like the hotels are your customers, right?
Great.
So are the customers of your customers your customers?
Also another very good question.
Yeah.
And this is one of the approaches we wanted to take differently at Mews, because most of the systems before only considered rooms, right? It's all about getting people in rooms, getting people out, cleaning a room, how does the room look, what are the reviews about the room? We want to take an approach and say, okay, how do we put the guest first? Right, so how do we make sure that guest has an incredible experience? And that example that I mentioned of the luxury hotel, being able to pull that information about the guest to curate the experience. We've been building guest-facing applications as well to allow guests to actually interact with the hotel, give them the options to do, whether it's a student or a business traveler doing their self-check-in or check-out from their phones, people who want to actually have an experience, focusing on the different segments and the reason why people travel. And those are some of the core parts that we are helping hoteliers do right now, is helping them better understand who they are serving, who their clients are.
Yeah, thank you. Because that was my thinking, right? Like if you make them happy, then they're going to make their, your customer happy, and that's it. That's what you want. But in your presentation, I didn't see any reference to it. So I was like, okay, who's their customer? So do you actively interview people on holiday, or like?
Yes, so we essentially split our product into two sides, a B2B and B2C. So our B2C teams spend a lot of time in hotels and also interviewing guests as well. So we have ongoing projects to continuously speak to guests, continuously speak to hoteliers, and look at things from both sides of the coin.
Please, your next product needs to be flight booking. You need to disrupt that. It's totally broken. Please.
Have you ever looked behind the desk of an airline? I mentioned some hotels that use DOS systems. It's terrifying. It's bad because they don't have great tools, and they don't have great tools because, unfortunately, the regulations there are insane. But one day, I'm sure our founder, Richard, is going to hear this, and he's going to be asking us when we're going to start selling to airlines. So I'll see how that conversation goes.
Thanks. I mean, if you take orders, maybe banking could be next as well.
That's too out of scope. But again, Richard's definitely going to ask me that later on. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much for answering all those questions. That was Aldair from Mews.
Thank you.
Now, before we get to the next presentation, I was told that we might require a brief technological pause to reconnect all the computers. So I was explicitly tasked with figuring out a few jokes for you. And so I filtered out a few GPT jokes. And it's not bad, actually. So why did the product manager bring a ladder to stand up? Because the roadmap was looking a little high level. Not bad. How many product managers does it take to change a light bulb? None, because they'll just add automatic light changing to the backlog. Why did the data analyst break up with the product manager? This is actually about the presentation. Because they kept making assumptions without any evidence. No? Product development is like baking cake. Except the recipe keeps changing, half the team thinks it's a pie, and the customer actually wanted cookies. Rings a bell? My favorite part of product development is when users tell you what they really want after you already built the product. Then there is, what's the difference between a product backlog and Santa's list? Well, Santa's list actually gets finished. And how do you know scope creep is out of control? When MVP starts needing full user manual. Now, product development is 10% building the product and 90% convincing everyone you are building the right product. And the last one I have prepared, so they should be finishing soon, I hope. What's the scariest phrase for a product manager? It works on my machine. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah. Scary, isn't it? Anyway, Jirka and Adam from Navigara, thank you for being here, and let's get on with the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. We've prepared a talk with an intriguing title, How Data Can Guide Smart Career Choices. In layman's terms, how to find a job, or what to look for when we are looking for a job. We'll start with a short introduction, who we are actually.
I'm CEO and founder of Navigara, and I'm also a host of Czech technical podcast called Scripties, not Striptease. That's something completely different.
There are some intersections, however.
Yeah. And in the past 6 years, I went over 1,000 interviews with software developers. And this is Adam.
Yeah, well, my background is kind of complicated. So in 2022, I quit my former job, and I decided to spend as much time as possible trying to find a new one. It took me almost 2 years, and I attended almost 100 interviews. Out of perhaps frustration, I started writing articles about it, and this is how I got in touch with Jirka, who just happened to raise some money for his startup. And this startup, surprisingly, is focused on
Job change.
Job change, yes. Before we dive into job searching in general, I would like to ask you, how many years on average have you stayed in one company?
Who spent in one company on average more than 2 years? Raise your hand. Okay, nice, a lot of you. My average is 6. Continue.
Yeah. All right, so first we would like to say a few words about Navigara, what actually Navigara is. So Navigara.com is a platform.
Yeah. We're trying to give you the data so you can make the right decisions. So for example, this is a breakdown of Spotify. So you can see in which country Spotify is hiring, what's the average salary for IT specialists, and like salaries for different positions. And on the bottom part, you can see how much they are hiring right now.
It's basically a platform that scrapes job posts, analyzes companies, analyzes certain data, certain amounts of data, from job posts to salary maps, salaries cross-reference over countries, and also fluctuation. That's a new hot topic. We also try to analyze fluctuation.
Yeah.
Focused on Czech market right now, but the plan is to expand to the whole Europe in a few months.
Yeah, and the map is like a map of 300 cities across the world, and you can calculate, it can calculate your salaries.
It's also worth mentioning that currently we are focusing on IT developers, because that's something we are very
passionate about.
Yes, of course. But also the plan is to open or support more positions such as designers, product managers, product owners, and so on. But right now we are focusing mainly on IT development sector. All right. Job searching in general, looking back. Is there someone who was looking for a job 11 years past in 2013? Or who remembers what was the job market like around that area?
They don't look that old.
Right. Yeah, I feel old. So I was looking for a job in 2013, and it was kind of tricky. I had to dress up when I was applying in big companies, and of course, if I was lucky enough, I got my feedback within 3 weeks.
Just to get the context, what do you think was the main browser in 2013? Internet Explorer had like 55% in the market.
Yeah. 2019, it was a good year, perhaps even like contrasting with 2013, because companies were hiring people they didn't even need. Companies were hiring people that were not even qualified for the job. This is actually how I switched from Android development to full stack, because I used to be an Android developer, and just one company invited me for an interview. I knew nothing about full stack, and it wasn't a problem, so I was relocated to Munich back then. Then
COVID happened.
Oh yes, pandemic came along, and I started looking for a job in 2022. Not very good. 2023 was a disaster, and 2024, it's improving, I would say.
It's getting better, yeah.
It's getting better, but at least there are not many layoffs as they were 1 year past. But still, I would say 2025 will be much, much better than this year. If we take a look at how people look for jobs, what do you think is the most common way how it all starts?
Like I think like LinkedIn right now is pretty popular.
Well, people we interviewed,
Yeah.
they usually start with this approach. So unless they are not looking actively, they start with the status. They switch the status to open to work. Next, they wait for recruiters.
You know what? I'm curious. How do the recruiters know that I'm open to work?
That's tricky, and I didn't know that just a few months ago that if you would like to use filtering in LinkedIn, you need to buy a license.
Okay.
So there are several licenses. It's called LinkedIn Recruiter. There is a pro version, light version, and enterprise version, if I'm not mistaken. And it costs a lot of money.
How much?
I guess it peaks $10,000 per year for some licenses.
For what?
For one person.
For one person?
For one license.
Okay, so you're saying that if I click open to work, only the people who pay $10,000 per year will know about me?
That is correct, which means that not every company can afford it, which also means...
Like, it makes a lot of sense for agencies to do.
Oh yes, agencies.
Yeah. Have you noticed that a lot of agencies are
It's very
contacting
common.
you?
Someone writes a message like, for a big client from banking industry,
Yeah.
we are looking
Yeah.
for a developer who knows this and that, and if you are interested in more information, just write me a message.
You heard that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just this morning.
Oh,
All right, so you attend 5 to 10 interviews. If you are brave enough, perhaps even like more, 15 plus. Usually it's around 5. Get a few
Okay.
job offers, and if you are lucky enough, you will come to a conclusion, accept your job, and get on board, and perhaps even survive the probation period.
yeah, I'm not sure, like, where is the problem? Like, that sounds like really, like, handy, you find a job, so where is the issue?
The issue is, well, how much time does it take?
I don't know, a few days,
How
maybe
much
a few
time it
hours?
cost you to decide on your previous job?
Oh man, like 1 hour.
1 hour. 1 hour. So the issue is, like, this is how people decide how to spend 5 to 10% of their productive life just within this short time frame.
Like, what do you mean, like 5 to 10% of productive life?
Well, considering that you start working after graduation, which is when we are 20, 25,
Okay.
40 years of experience, or 40
Yeah.
years of work.
I plan to retire at 65.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well,
okay.
That's
Or
another
maybe
issue.
never.
So 3 years would be 7%.
Yeah,
So let's say
because-
5 to 10% of your life.
So on
productive life.
average, people spend 3 years in one company.
Mhm.
And 3 years in context of 40 years, you are working somewhere, it's 7.5%.
Yes.
And you probably earn a lot of money during the time.
Mhm.
How much? Does like IT specialists
Well,
earn
for
like,
IT developers, it can in Czechia it can be 3 to 6 million Czech crowns
like in 3 years?
in 3 years.
Oh, that's a like nice apartment in Prague. No?
No, it's not.
No?
It's a small garage right now. But anyway, it's a lot of money.
Okay, okay. But you probably should spend like more time deciding what
Yes,
garage to buy.
definitely. That's the issue. So I would like to open it with the quick key question. Have you ever analyzed the job market before you started looking for a job? Is there anyone who did the homework, like analyzing the job market before you started looking for a job?
I didn't
2
even know
people.
what to analyze in the job market.
What to look for?
Yeah.
All right. So there are some questions you should be asking yourself. Although Navigara is focused mainly on developers, we try to make the presentation more generic. So there are some questions anyone can ask.
Yeah.
For instance, if there is a particular month when companies hire more,
So you're saying there's like a month when companies hiring less?
there are definitely months when you should not look for a job.
Which ones?
Summer vacations, Christmas.
Oh, you know, we just raised some money, and I read like an article where to raise the money.
Yeah, when companies are raising money, or startups are
Yeah.
raising money, when big companies decide are approving their budgets.
So during July, August, you know, these months, all of you are on vacations, so the companies are not hiring as much as during March
That's correct.
or around Christmas. You know where your focus is. is on buying Christmas presents, not hiring colleagues.
So what would be the best time?
Sorry?
What would be the best time or best month?
Yeah, like
March,
April, yeah.
and autumn?
Yeah, that's what our data is saying.
Yeah. I would also be mindful of January, because yes, companies do hire in January. However, in January also the market is flooded with people who quit their jobs the previous year.
You know why? Because they have 2 weeks to think about their jobs.
Oh, yes. The next one. Which industry segment is currently hiring the most? Well, from our knowledge, developers don't really care about their segments, not that often, but there are some people who do care which segment to focus on. Someone only works in automotive, someone only works in banking industry or fintech.
Yeah. I heard that automotive is not going well today.
Well, in 2019, it was a gold mine to work in automotive, especially in Germany, but automotive is currently one of the struggling segments. So also that's something that should be taken into consideration while looking for a job. Which industry is currently hiring the most?
Maybe you're asking why you should monitor the segment. I think the reason is that for a company which is like doing, I don't know, streaming, video streaming, if your previous experience is with video platforms, they are more likely to give you more money.
Yeah, that's correct. Another one. What are some well-known companies in my field? I asked a friend of mine, he is very into IoT, if he knew some companies, like leading companies in IoT, and he only mentioned one company, the one he worked at.
Yeah, and how many companies there is, like in Czech Republic, that are hiring IT specialists?
Considering IT business, well, we have 4,000 companies in our database, so it would be around 4,000 or 5,000 companies, IT companies in Czechia, which is a big number, considering that we all know perhaps a few dozens companies, IT companies in Czechia.
Yeah. Before this, I probably know like 20, maybe 25. So.
How will potential employers learn about me? So imagine you are here. Here is your dream job, and how to maximize the probability that you will get in touch with each other. That's also something.
That's easy. You know, I will be like the best IT specialist in the world, and people will just know that I'm the most hardworking guy in the company.
And that's what many developers actually say. And if you transform it into product thinking, it will be like, I have this product. I don't need to market it. I don't need to sell it because everybody will know about my product, right?
People will just tell, yeah.
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 What attributes about a company are important to me? Someone prefers product companies over software houses. Someone prefers startups over corporates or big companies.
Maybe a good question is what attributes are not important to me also.
Yes, that's correct. Because it's very complicated to define what you are looking for, but it's easy to define what you would not like to do or what is against you, what is not your cup of tea. I didn't know what I was looking for 3 years ago.
And after 100 interviews, you know.
After 15, 20, I made up my mind.
Yeah, and during my 1,000 interviews, I never met anyone who asked these questions.
But you are the interviewer.
Yeah, I know, but you can tell.
Right, and here comes the
this is like really interesting idea. Try to think about yourself not as a person, but as a product in the job market. Because your experience, so you are a well-established product, and you try to improve yourself. And if you are a product, how to improve a product? It's easy. You just ask your customers, and they will give you feedback, and then you implement these features. Have you ever asked potential companies what to improve about yourself to be better?
So this is actually what we are trying, what Navigara is trying the developers to ask themselves. Yeah. And although this may sound really obvious, people don't really follow this approach.
Yeah, it's funny, like we were like curious. Is it a degree? You should finish your degrees or your doctorate or learn Java or JavaScript. No, there's like a single skill that will increase your salary great on different level. And it's so trivial. It's English. Because from Czech local market, you are targeting the global market.
Yeah, English has a significant value in terms of how big market you can target.
And the same stuff you can apply not just on how to improve the product, but also how to market the product.
Yes.
Because in a standard product, you have inbound, outbound marketing. You can use the same tactics when you are looking for a job. The same stuff can be applied on sales. You have like a sales team with a sales page, how to sell the product. But in the job market, there's a slight issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just you, and you can like sell your skin to the company, so you are only renting yourself, and you can rent only once.
Yes.
So
only once.
Only once.
That's the tricky thing.
And then you should pick the best company for you. Just think about it.
Huh. All right. In this phase, we would like to just give you a little touch of some insights we gathered while analyzing our data. And we are going to start with data sources.
Yeah, do you know which job portal is like the most popular in Czech Republic? Is it the jobs.cz?
Startup jobs?
Or
and other ideas?
Or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. Sorry?
Jubel.
Jubel?
Or Skeleto, or Jobrella, or No Fluff Jobs, or Monster, or Indeed.
Well, some time ago, it was 3 or 4 months ago, we looked in our data and we discovered one interesting thing. 25% of all job posts are coming from career websites.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some companies that are posting on career websites, startup jobs, they use multiple sources, but there are some companies who only post on their career webs.
How many are there?
I guess 1,000?
1,000?
1,000 companies in Czechia only.
Yeah. So if you're only using LinkedIn, you're using only the 12% of the market.
Right, so considering you use only LinkedIn, plus perhaps one job portal, such as startup jobs, you are missing a significant portion of the whole market.
And this, we are talking only on Czech Republic,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I never thought about it, that Careers Web can contain such a large amount of job posts.
It's so boring to check these career web pages.
Yeah. All right, here are some trends about hybrid work versus on-site jobs versus remote jobs. We have data from Czechia and also for the whole Europe, which is European Union plus the UK. In Czechia and also in Europe, there's a visible trend saying that remote jobs are not on the agenda anymore, comparing 2023 and 2024. So I would say hybrid work is the new norm, which is something that is proved in our data.
Yeah.
Oh, popular segments. So we analyzed 100,000 dev job posts in Europe, and we came into some interesting insights, such as fintech is the leading one, 8,000 job posts, followed by banking, of course, it's very similar, healthcare, e-commerce, automotive. I would say just 3 or 4 years ago, automotive was one of the leading industries, so perhaps between banking and healthcare, energy and telecommunication.
Yeah, and these numbers are changing every month.
Yeah, that's correct. That's also something that should be taken into consideration, that this is not set in stone, this is not as it is, it can change every month on a monthly basis.
Yeah, and Thomas analyzed it last week.
Yeah, this is the data from the last week. All right, the last topic is something we call engagement. And it's a very interesting attribute or indicator.
Yeah, you came up with the attribute.
Yeah. What does it mean, engagement? If you read a job post, you will have some feelings about it. There are lots of emojis. If the job post is one-sided or balanced, which means if the company put some effort trying to impress or attract the candidate. On the scale 1 to 5, Finland was one of the best ones.
And the scale is like 1 to 5?
1 to 5.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, Nordic countries such as Finland, we don't have data for Norway and Denmark, but I would say it would score the same or very similar value. Austria and Germany also very high value, which is also surprising. Sweden and Netherlands. Czechia, also very good result. What is interesting though, that Czech job posts contain the largest number of emojis from all countries we have analyzed.
And why do you think like they are so engaging in Finland or Austria?
Because of the candidate pool.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it's harder to hire someone there?
If it's hard to hire someone, I would say there is a pressure to create job posts. Candidates will not just skip.
Okay, makes sense.
The same for Italy, or Italy is very similar to Czechia in terms of engagement. And there is one country, or one portion of country we analyzed, and it's the US, which scored below 2. It's worth mentioning that we analyzed only big cities, such as cities in California, Texas, and New York. And the score was very low for one specific reason.
What reason?
The reason is that the market or the candidate pool is oversaturated because everyone would like to relocate to USA, right?
Who would like to work for a Californian startup? No? I understand why.
If you take a look at a random job post from, for instance, Dallas in Texas, you will find certain patterns. There are lots of buzzwords, of course, and usually the companies are looking for people that have a very, very broad knowledge. Sometimes it's a mixture of multiple roles. For software engineering, it can be even a mixture of product management. People management is a plus. Yeah. University degree usually is a must-have skill. So those job posts are very different from posts we analyzed in Europe. So just to conclude,
base your decision on numbers.
It really doesn't matter what data you analyze. It matters how you define what you are looking for and how to basically match your skills and your expertise with the current market.
I like the sentence from previous talk. Set your goals and use the data to fulfill your goals.
Yeah.
Was a really nice one.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jirka and Adam, for this amazing experience. Are there any questions in the room? Anyone? Right.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really engaging. I had a question about the data source, about job posting source slide, where you mentioned like 25% from LinkedIn and so on. Yeah. If you took in consideration that some jobs like post on their career webs, on startup and on Jobs.cz, for example, and some companies post only on LinkedIn. If you like somehow clear the job postings.
The first one will win. If the job post is first on career web pages, the career web pages will be.
Career web pages takes precedence, which means that if we analyze multiple sources, if it's on the career websites, this is the job post that we will publish.
Yeah, so you like eliminated the duplicates, like for one job posting?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, thank you. And one more question, can I find somewhere this presentation, or it's just private for?
Well, we can share it with you, for sure. I'm not sure where to send the link, but it's not, it's basically...
For what purpose you would like to use the presentation?
No problem. Like the last slides were very interesting.
I have it on my local host, so I can just publish it somewhere and share it with you. It's not a problem.
Yeah, maybe on LinkedIn or so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm not actually curious because you said about measuring data and so on. How do you measure engagement in a job post?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yes.
There are certain attributes. We use traditional approaches, such as keywords, and of course LLMs, which help us a lot to measure the balance between how much text is dedicated to speaking about the company, like how often, or how to put it, how big portion of the text is just about the company and how big portion of the text is about the candidate. If the company tries to impress the candidate, what the candidate will get if he or she joins the company, or why the candidate should join the company in the first place. Because some job posts don't even contain this information why the candidate should join. So there are certain indicators, and we score basically all the indicators. Something is scored via LLM, and something is scored using keywords.
Yeah. You know, basically, we all job posts analyzed by LLMs with like crazy prompts. That's why we have so much cool data.
Yeah, there's some black magic. It was just that we looked at the data and we manipulated with the prompts until we got the result that somehow matched what we are trying that it's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Amazing presentation, guys. Yeah, the data is amazing. I would like to understand what challenges have you faced trying to, mine this data? Are you using LLMs a lot, or are you using traditional scrapers, or and yeah, is it challenging to get data from LinkedIn or some other sources?
Is there something that is not challenging?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part was the career web pages.
Mm-hmm. Because every web page is different.
Yeah.
So we need to find the link to all the job posts, and we need to download the content, transform the content from HTML to Markdown, and we need to analyze it using LLM, and then we decide if it's an IT job post or not, and extract data that is valuable for us.
I think we don't have to go in detail, but basically we are using LLMs to create these scrapers and maintain. Because right now we are doing the same thing in the whole Europe, and these numbers are like crazy.
Okay, any more questions? Anyone? Doesn't seem like it. In that case, Jirka and Adam, thank you very much for being here, and thanks for the presentation. And as this was the last presentation we have prepared for you today, the only thing that's remaining is for you to have a good time with your fellow visitors, do a bit of networking, have the rest of refreshments we have here. Enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, and have a wonderful night. So thank you very much for being here, and we are looking for you next time.